Good morning, everyone. My name is Emmanuel van Houdenhoven. I am the Sales and Recruitment Manager at Andershobols, and I am delighted to welcome today a European panel of women professionals living and working in the Netherlands, respectively since 2007 and 2009, and both having very successfully developed their own niche activity. I will start with you, Angela. You are our Italian panelist today. Thank you for joining us. You started in corporate HR in the fields of rewards, compensation, and global mobility, both in Europe and the rest of the world. You worked in the cultural sector, in tech startups, and ultimately you created your own social enterprise called Every Mother Knows. I have a feeling everybody knows Every Mother Knows, to accompany specifically employees going back to work after a parental break, and more generally helping the growing community of international parents in the Netherlands. You also advise companies on creating a diverse and inclusive workplace. Sarah, bonjour. You are, on the other hand, our French panelist today. Thank you for joining us as well. You are definitely used to having more string to your bow, and, or as we say, a finger in multiple pies. I actually met you originally as the chair of a French non-profit called Avenir Emploi, literally your next job. Designed to help French candidates arriving and entering the job market in the Netherlands. You are also a career coach. You define yourself as a community builder, and that's an understatement. But first and foremost, you are a recruiter at the French Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands. And like us, both of you, like us at Andershobols, both of you are working with very specific pools of talent. And as such, you have obviously a unique take on the impact of the pandemic on both the workplace and the job market in the Netherlands. And so before we go to the theme, I quickly wanted to tell our audience that this will be a fairly interactive program. It will last an hour. I will monitor while our experts are talking. I will monitor the Q&A. Please put your questions in the Q&A, and I will try to send them through as much as we can during the webinar, and anything that I haven't been able to pick up during the webinar will pick up at the end of the session around roughly 10 to 11. So going back to the actual theme, the pandemic has changed our world, our working world, quite significantly. And even though it is not over yet, we start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But one thing is for sure, the next normal of our working life will be very different. And when I talked to both of you, our experts today, you came back with, both of you actually, with the back to better notion and trend, which in all honesty I had heard very little about. And as we are starting this webinar, rather than doing a long and lengthy introduction on the subject, I thought we would ask you, our audience, how you feel about the back to better trends. Have you heard of it? Have you already used it, and has it impacted your working life? So you'll see, if all goes well, and thank you to Kirsten, our marketing manager, operating behind the screen. You can see the first question to this poll. Please answer it. You have 30 questions to answer it. Have you never heard of it? You have heard of it, but you don't really know what it means. You have heard the term, but don't really know the exact concrete impact of it, and don't find it relevant. You know the term, and you are looking at ways to implement it in your own company, and you know or are already using the term to shape your new company policies. So feel free to participate. We'll wait a few seconds more, and hopefully we'll have some results showing up. It says host and panelists cannot vote. Yeah, I guess we are not able to vote. Shame, really, but so well, wait. I don't see any results appearing there yet. It will be interesting. So never heard of it. So that's a good thing that we are talking about it today. But for those who have heard the term, you really don't know what it means. And we have 9% actually here because they know the term and they are looking at ways to implement it in their own company, which is great. So thank you for participating. I'll close this for now. And then we'll start with you, Angela, because obviously through the entire pandemic, as working parents, how our working environment has dramatically changed, has been muted or moved to our newfound workplace at home. And that has been directly impacted by our private lives and, among other things, the measures that were taken in relation with our children's schooling. And some of the working parents that we know, and I'm sure some of you, possibly you have been in that case, that have found themselves working from home with children from a very young age, also in sudden need of homeschooling, I found this probably the ultimate resilience test. So how do you feel working parents approach their onboarding and reconnecting to the office today in this 2021 transition period?
First of all, thank you, Emanuele, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
A pleasure to have you.
I think it's going to be quite fun. I think working parents are looking forward, most of them are looking forward to reconnect to their office life. They have missed their colleagues. They have missed most of the times having also a tidy place to work from, a tidy desk, no noise around. So I see when I speak to my clients, I check in with my network that working parents are really looking forward to return. Obviously, we have learned during this pandemic that we can be productive and efficient also working from anywhere, especially also working from our homes, even when it's messy and it's noisy. So obviously, working parents might want to keep some of that flexibility, some of that hybrid scheme to be able also to accommodate their family's needs while also carrying on and growing in their careers. I've seen that many working parents who used to work full-time during the pandemic really discovered also the pleasure of being more close to their family, of being more present in their family life. So there has been also, beside all the challenges and the stress, there has been also some great opportunities, some joys that we found in this crisis. And I think that those parents want to keep that connection also to their families, to their home life. So of course, everybody likes to work in a super nice and clean place and with very little noise in the background. But at the same time, we also need that connection. We understood also that it's important to have that, also the other side, also that balance a bit. And I think maybe I've come across actually a very funny video about parents returning to the office. So if Kirsten can help us, maybe we can show this video now. It's in Flemish. But
ook veel volwassenen voor de eerste keer terug naar kantoor. Ik wil niet.
Allee, je gaat alle vriendjes terugzien. Luc, Rita, Mark. Kijk, daar is Steve van de accounting ook. Heb je uw broodjes?
Ja.
Hier nog een koek.
Wel. Dag Frank.
Wat zeggen we dan? Dag leidinggevende.
Dag leidinggevende.
Hij is een beetje zenuwachtig.
Ik ben eigenlijk ook een beetje zenuwachtig. Maar we gaan van alle toffe dingen doen vandaag. We gaan spreadsheets maken. We gaan vergaderen over de kwartaalcijfers.
Ik moet trouwens ook weg, want We hebben WO en de nieuwe themakaftort uitgelegd.
Ah, voilà, zie. Zeg, wie heeft er zin in een lekker tasje koffie? Hé, ik kom straks wel terug. Toch maar, hè. Toch maar, hè. Toch maar, hè.
En hoe was het?
Superleuk. Kijk, ik heb het vergaderrapport mogen uittypen.
Amai, heb jij dat gemaakt?
Ja. Steve heeft wel een ongelukje gehad. Kijk.
En omdat je zo flink bent geweest, gaan we vanavond spaghetti eten en gaan we naar de afspraak kijken.
Yes! En wie zijn de gasten?
Mia Dora.
Ah, weer al.
Knop.
Gaan ook veel volwassenen.
Thanks for sharing it. This is great.
It's a laugh, of course, for all of us. And I think it's amazing also to remember that our kids learn from us as well, and they see us as role models. So
Definitely.
it's important to keep that in mind.
And do you feel that those working parents, I mean, certainly when we look at that video, but do you think their perspective has changed in the way they approach their working environment and the way they want to work, etc.?
Yeah, of course, we have seen that life and work have really blended with each other. I mean, we discovered also really on our own skin what work-life integration really means. I think it was before a bit of theoretical thing, but now we have really experienced it during the pandemic. I think working parents, of course, might want to have some support in place. Mm. And they have also learned that the support that they get at home can benefit their work, and vice versa. The support that they get from their employers at the workplace can also benefit their private life, their family life. So flexibility will be absolutely a must for this new era, for this new chapter. Hybrid work arrangements when it comes to working from home, working from anywhere else, working from the office, of course. And also really support to navigate the challenges that maybe they experience also in their life, because we have seen really the impact that our life has on our career, and how important it is also to support that.
Definitely. And actually I liked it because when we prepared the webinar, you were talking about work-life reintegration, really. And the impact that it may have in the future on the new norm, the new working environment. Can you see some of this impact concretely already?
Yeah, absolutely. What I see, for example, is that we can see already some initiatives that were running also before the pandemic, but also, I mean, like really our children joined our Zoom meetings, right, in the last year and a half. So maybe our managers now really know a lot of our families, of how we operate as well, what we do also outside our office life. So this is quite a great opportunity really to connect also at the office on a deeper level, to have really authentic conversations, and also to use the opportunities that our life gives us also for the workplace, for our professional growth, and for the relationships that we have at work as well.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is exactly that, is to find within the companies some of those new initiatives, and whether they are coming from Dutch or international companies in the Netherlands. I think what's interesting is maybe indeed to realize that there are some of those initiatives already being put in place. Do you see those specifically for your target groups, so for multinational, multilingual working moms?
Mm-hmm. In general, I think most of the organizations here have been quite supportive towards working parents, with extra babysitting vouchers during the pandemic, childcare support, of course, that they gave their employees as an extra benefit. Because of course, nowadays, employees are also looking for total reward benefits, which don't have to do only with salaries and bonuses, but can really have an impact also on their life. So I think that this type of support like with childcare, extra childcare, but also coaching and opportunities for maybe working parents within a company, just to connect in a webinar, to share their challenges, to also really kind of discover each other's, because maybe some people work together, but they don't know that they are both parents as well. So, for example, I've been leading several of those webinars at different companies here in the Netherlands online. And yeah, it was quite eye-opening for people who joined, and they all appreciated that the companies are really caring for their life also outside work. I think also that the internationals who live here and also have children, of course, have an extra challenge, because as we say, it takes a village to raise a family. And of course, they don't have the larger family and network here most of the time. So it is very important that companies give also information, resources, that can really support them, that can really give them an extra support also to navigate their life challenges, especially during some major crises like the one that we had. And I think also well-being has been a very important topic throughout the last couple of years. Many companies have implemented a well-being day, for example, a month, to really give their employees in general, and of course also working parents, this opportunity to recharge and to nourish, to reconnect also with themselves and their loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we see it everywhere, that the connections that we make with people in the work environment, whether within the company or outside of our own company, are often these days on a much more personal level, which is great. And I have a question to both of you, but funnily enough, I was about to ask you, what do international employees expect today from a Dutch employer? And at the same time, we received through the Q&A a question from Albert asking, to challenge you a bit, how far do you think an employer should go in this flexibility? What is acceptable and what is not? Flexibility and trust, which is something that we'll talk about with Sarah in a minute, are the most important topics in creating a hybrid working culture. So we couldn't be more in agreement with you, Albert, on those subjects. But so just to go back quickly, maybe we'll develop in a little about this. But when we think about the international employees in the Netherlands, and talking about creating a flexible and diverse hiring for example, working mom, how do you think this is possible and this is being done today? Or is it being done, Angela?
Yeah. I think, of course, I mean, there are options, there are initiatives around that. I have to say, I can't park Albert's question there, so I need to answer that. I have this huge joy of answering it. Hi, Albert. I think it's Albert used to be actually one of my colleagues, actually my manager at Europeana. So I think I love his question, because it is really about, indeed, as you say, the trust and flexibility, and also, how far we can go. I think it's really about having that conversation and being honest, right? And also finding that scheme, that balance that works for both the company and the people, the employees. So really see, also what is there, what can be exchanged between the two parties, and also if it's worth finding that win-win, because obviously companies need talent these days. So we have that at stake. And if you want to also make your talent happy, if you need certain skills and you need certain people, and there is trust, obviously, and they bring you results, then you can make that exchange, you can make that connection work. And of course, it has to be also fair to the rest of the organization, to the rest of the people within the organization. So it is also important, I believe, to look for fairness policies and approaches, because of course, I think this topic of caring for somebody is not just for parents, might also be applicable for people who have like elderly people to look after, for example. So I think that's very important.
Sarah, maybe on the subject of thank you, Angela. Sarah, maybe on the subject of flexibility for your target groups, so for expats and self-employed multilinguals and internationals in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think flexibility was already a topic before COVID, actually. And I think in many instances, COVID has just accelerated what we were seeing before COVID. And when we talk about flexibility, maybe we can share the poll I prepare about it, because a lot of people talk about flexibility, but are we sure that we're talking about the same thing?
Yes.
So maybe we can already see after the poll how it goes for our audience.
And so the second question from Sarah. So what does flexibility mean to you? The ability to multitask, the ability to change direction rapidly, and being okay with being always reachable, available, which is a big topic, and any of the possibilities. Yeah, flexibility is like we say in French, the maître mot, the big word that has been together
it's also
with
a buzzword for the last couple of years. It was a buzzword as well as resilience, for example. And now I would say the buzzword is hybrid workplace or hybrid work environment. But we don't always talk about the same thing when we are using those words. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, hybrid work culture that Albert was just talking about. We're coming back to it, but the hybrid work culture, it has all matter of scenes as well behind it. So we have the ability to multitask, 8%, 42% for the ability to change direction rapidly, which is great, and being okay with being always reachable, available, 25%. I'm not sure this is a positive flexibility in that sense. And then over 25%. Don't hesitate to share, what those other flexibility notions mean to you for the ones who have, participated under the other segment. But again, thank you. So Sarah, I'm turning to you because you work very often with international companies, either newly arrived in the Netherlands or still based in their original country of origin, often France, of course.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the main issues facing international companies in the Netherlands today? I mean, in this transition year, post-pandemic, practically.
At the moment, I work mainly with French companies that are looking to hire people in the Netherlands. So obviously Dutch candidate, or at least the candidate speaking Dutch, so they can open the market for the French company. And the main issue when I talk to French companies, it's about trust and flexibility. So flexibility is almost a given when you only have one employee in the Netherlands and the company is in France, because you can't micromanage when you are 2,000 kilometers away, or at least it's a little bit more difficult than in the same office. So flexibility is almost a given, but still we have questions about how we can trust our employee in the Netherlands and how we can manage someone who is going to work alone in the country or in the Benelux or whatever. And obviously the work culture in the Netherlands and in France is quite different, because there is a lot of trust in the Netherlands, especially if you compare it to how the work culture is in France. Also, it may sound as stereotypes, but still it exists as for today, because I worked last year with a French company in France, and they were like, maybe 2 days a week remote working is okay, but it's really a maximum for us. Whereas in the Netherlands, you can have maybe 3 days a week, and it's not necessarily a problem or a question. Working remotely, or at least not in the office. And also it comes with the history in the Netherlands, because even before COVID, 14% of employees in the Netherlands were already working remotely several days a week, whereas it was 6.6% in France and 5% in Germany. So it was already a gap between France and the Netherlands in terms of how you manage your workforce. And it's just increased because of COVID and what candidates are expecting for their company. And to circle back to flexibility, the main issue when we are talking about flexibility is, like, for companies, we can all see in job ads in the Netherlands, no 9 to 5 mentality.
Yes.
This is like almost in every job ads, you can see no 9 to 5 mentality. What does it mean for a company? Does it mean that you have to be a self-starter? Does it mean that you have enough autonomy so you can work on your own and be productive on your own? Or does it mean that you can be rich outside your working hours? During the weekend, you will have to answer an email, for example, or after 5 or 6 in the evening, you will have to answer a phone call. What does it mean? And for the candidates, flexibility will be related to work-life balance. Can I arrive a little bit later in the morning if I have to take care of my children? Can I leave early in the afternoon if I have to take care of my children? Can I work from France, as I do now, because I have to take care of an elderly parent? So we don't necessarily talk about the same thing when we are talking about flexibility. And it all comes down to the company culture around flexibility and trust. What is the level of trust within the company, and what is the framework regarding flexibility? And it also comes down to diversity, for example, in the workplace. Because what we discovered with COVID and lockdowns is that for some people, it was way easier to work from home than it was to work in the office, for different reasons, because they are part of a minority, because they need a calm environment to be able to concentrate and work and focus. Also, it could have been a little bit more difficult for other kind of people, but it comes down to diversity. If you want a diverse workforce, you need to be more flexible with how you trust people and how you organize the work, actually.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's very funny to see that that comes down also to the work culture that you were describing. It comes down to the country of origin and the culture in that particular country. The working day in the Netherlands is not the same as the working day in France. So in France, you know, the 9 to 5 mentality, it means something very different, I feel. But you're right, we see that also. I mean, obviously at Under Chabos, we welcome those international candidates every day, mostly virtually still at the moment. But we see also from their side, from the candidates' side and perspective, that their requirements are changing. And the question is, for coming back to what you were describing on the side of the employer, how can we best build that those differences to make it, or maybe it's around flexibility indeed, but I believe you were talking about resilience when we discussed this as well, for building the bridge between, for example, a Dutch candidate speaking French working for a French company like you come across very often, I believe, and then that French company is still based in France with very different demands, very different expectations. How do you build that bridge, basically?
Yeah, basically, I try to explain everything to the French company up front. So even before we start looking for candidates, I try to explain them, like, something as basic as if you say to a candidate that you are going to call him back on a precise day, you have to respect that. If you say we're going to have a meeting at 9, you have to call at 9, not at 9:15 or 9:30 or whatever. So yeah, we need to explain a lot of cultural aspects. It may seem like details, but it's very important, because if you are late to a meeting with a Dutch candidate once, twice, they won't trust you in the long run, for sure. If you don't give news between interviews, if you don't manage a relationship with the candidates between interviews, you will lose candidates. And it actually happened very recently with for a company. They were like really French company. Also, they are not French historically, they are not French, but they are working and behaving like a really old French company. They were like, yeah, we need to, this candidate need to make a test, but the test company is closed for the holiday, so the candidate needs to be patient. And I was like, it's not possible to ask a candidate to be patient. We are in first of all, we are in an economy in the Netherlands where it's a candidate-driven market. So either you take care of the candidate, either you lose the candidates. It's that simple. Yeah. And also, if you want to build a relationship with a candidate, you can't say that they have to be patient because you need more time or whatever. You need to take care of them as a person, not only as a candidate. And if I see a trend since maybe 6 months within the candidate pool, it's like candidates want to be seen as people, not only as a portfolio of skills. It was already the case before COVID, of course, but it's more and more strong now, I feel. I don't know if Angela or maybe Emmanuel, you have the same feeling, but
definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. We are definitely in a more individualistic approach. And actually part of it we noticed as well, because in the Netherlands, a lot of employers, whether they are Dutch or international companies, will try to individualize the hiring and the approach to the hiring and the onboarding, simply also because, as you rightly pointed out, we are in a candidates market. So it means that candidates have a lot of choice, and the criteria for the selection, some of them are very intangible, like salary, secondary benefits, etc. But some of them are a lot more refined and a lot more subtle. And so it boils down to very, very little things. And what we've seen is that because, among other things, at the moment, it's difficult to find Italian speakers or French speakers who also speak Dutch at a native level, and who are not being basically taken very, very quickly off the market by companies who are extremely reactive. And so we see initiatives like, for example, offering Dutch employers actually offering, as part of a perk for the onboarding process, Dutch lessons in order to be able to integrate better, which is great, of course. But I was wondering whether you see these kind of initiatives to attract, for employers to attract on a more systematic and a wider scale, maybe international candidates, so that they can make a difference in the selection process from the candidate's perspective, when the candidates think, okay, which company do I want to go work for?
Yeah, I think training and the possibility to develop and grow within a company is definitely a trend for candidates. They ask more and more about what kind of training or what kind of growth they will be able to have within a company. And for example, we had a company who is offering French lessons to a Dutch candidate in the Netherlands, so they can communicate better with the French headquarters, for example. So yeah, because of COVID, maybe a lot of employees were like, okay, there may be another, maybe not a pandemic, but there may be another crisis around the corner for us. And what the companies are actually put in place to help us continue working or thrive during a crisis. And training is definitely a large part of it.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. That's a great point. And I like the idea that when we are in the Netherlands, we always think about Dutch lessons, but of course you could have French and Italian lessons and Chinese lessons, and it's the same thing. It's like, making sure that everybody can communicate and be on the same level. And going back to what we were saying about being in a candidates market at the moment in the Netherlands, how do you think this candidate market can positively, and the Back to Better trend can positively impact your respective pools of talent? Angela, I think when we talked about it, you were talking about innovation as well. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think that diverse hiring is absolutely a trend these days. So the companies need talent. And of course, there are more vacancies at the moment than candidates. And tapping into new pools of talent is really a necessity for the business. So really discovering maybe some talent pools that are just one step further away from the job market. Mm-hmm. And as you all know, I work mainly with women, moms who have been taking a break from work, taking care of their kids, or maybe relocated from one country to another one. So they have, of course, work experience that they parked maybe for a while. They are knowledgeable, they are highly qualified, highly skilled. They just need a little kick, a little boost of confidence to re-enter the job market. And I think that this could be also a great resource for the current market here in the Netherlands, considering also now that the global mobility is picking up again and people are also moving. So it's not just individuals, but also families, couples moving to Amsterdam and to the Randstad for exciting opportunities. So I would definitely recommend also initiatives that bring extra different types of candidates to companies. With Every Mother Knows, I'm launching returnships as, of course, an opportunity for women to re-enter the job market in a supported type of hiring. And also, of course, to give companies that trust and that support that they need to make sure that it will be a success, that we are not wasting our time, that with a bit of support, actually, you can find the right match, the right candidate. And of course, if you are coached also to overcome your own biases as an employer, and also as a mom, as a person who has been away from the workforce for a while, you are coached also to speed up again with your work and to be a fast learner again, to bring your skills again back to work. Then with that type of support, I think things can work pretty nicely. And of course, from a company's point of view, we also have this topic of sustainability these days. So it's also part of the more sustainable work practices that an employer can of course have for their organization. I think it's very important to focus on transferable skills as well, to see, also understand really what other types of candidates can also bring to your business. So maybe go a bit beyond the actual job description and also think about how other candidates can fulfill your business needs. Soft skills are also very important these days because most of the rest can be actually learned. But soft skills are very important and can really make a difference also in how long you will be able to have that talent on board. So retention, of course, is an important topic as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that topic about transferable skills at the moment is particularly important, of course. We see that as well, definitely. What about you, Sarah? I mean, what about the impact, the potentially positive impact of all this on your expat pool of talent? Do you see new opportunities for the expats and the self-employed in the Netherlands at the moment?
Yeah, I can only hope so. But it's not really. Yeah, I think because I work mainly with French companies, so the focus is a little bit different because also it's easy it's easy. It's easier in the Netherlands to maybe present a candidate with a atypical experience, for example, to a company, to a Dutch company. It's way more difficult to a French company. So also I'm really sure that expats, for example, or parents or freelancers are great asset for a company because they are already very flexible. If you're an expat, you have already managed to integrate a new culture, a new country. If you are a parent, you are the epitome of flexibility for sure. And if you are a freelancer, you also are well versed in flexibility because you have to manage several, you have several caps. So it's, and it can only be a great asset for a company. But also it's easier to convince a Dutch or international company. It's way more difficult to convince a French company that someone with a different background, that what they were looking for at the beginning, or someone who was a freelancer for a time and want to go back to be an employee, or mix freelancing and being an employee, or parents, it's always more difficult with a French company. I very often, for example, has the question about the age of the candidate when I work with French companies. And age is a big discriminator when you work with a French company. So if you're a parent and you are not 25 anymore, and you were away from away from work for a while, it's way more difficult with the French companies than it is with the Dutch or international company.
It's funny, it's always a matter of perspective, because when I was in the US and I came back here, I felt exactly the same way you feel about French company, about the companies that I was meeting here in the Netherlands. And so I think in Europe, maybe there are some differences, but it's even farther. The farther away you go, and the larger the differences in that aspect, I feel. We actually have a couple of reactions as well on the Q&A. Vincent is saying, as Albert says above, trust and flexibility are key to develop a sustainable hybrid and remote working culture. In France, it's all about hierarchy and control versus empowerment and autonomy in the Netherlands. Suggestions to make the interface French-Dutch, Franco-Dutch work better. So I guess that's for you, Sarah.
Hiring Vincent for a webinar, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
For now, I try to explain and work with French clients so they can understand a little bit better how it works in the Netherlands. And also, I spend a lot of time working as an interface between the candidate and the company, so I can explain the French company to the Dutch candidate and explain the Dutch candidate to the French company. And talking to every parties all the time, every day, all day, every day. I try to explain, but of course, if the company is not open enough to understand how it works in the Netherlands, it's always difficult. But I managed to make some great hire in the past months. So obviously, I can translate,
communicate
and translate between French companies and Dutch candidates.
Actually, that leads me nicely to the next questions, which is whether the two of you think that the Netherlands are leading the way in Europe in terms of employers' flexibility. Sarah, I'll start with you. Do you think this is more the case? So I guess in comparison with France, for example, probably, right?
Yeah, in comparison with France, and also they are. It's kind of a stereotype, of course, and it's not always the case. It depends really on the company, and if this company has already experience abroad, it's easier this way. But when it's the first hire outside of France, it's kind of very difficult to manage the relationship between candidates and the company. I don't know if the Netherlands are leading the way, but as I said earlier, even before COVID, there was already a culture of remote working in the Netherlands, culture that wasn't existing in France, for example. at least not at the same level. So yeah, when we talk to French, because we make some presentation, we made some presentation for schools in France. And when we talk to the students, we say, yes, in the Netherlands, you can work from home or at least remotely. It's easier than it is in France, for example. So there is some kind of, it's kind of an example for French companies and French students or French candidates. But is it enough? I don't know yet, because we still need to see how it goes after COVID and how yes. Companies are going to actually adapt and build a culture around an hybrid workforce. So people in the office all the time, people remotely all the time, and everything in between.
No, that's a great point. Well, Angela, what about you? I mean, how about flexible parenting scheme? Are the Dutch leading the way in that sense?
I think the Nordic countries are one step ahead for sure. We know that, of course, they have more gender neutral and balanced policies to support parents, employees who are getting children, of course. But I mean, the Netherlands has made quite some improvements as well. We know that paternity leave has been extended also yes. to 5 weeks as of this year. It started with 3 days, so it's been quite a change. And of course, there are several groups like Women Inc. and other organizations that really pushed this on the government agenda. And of course, companies then as a result are also offering some extra support there, also like coaching to support employees' transitions, like the one of becoming a parent, becoming a mom or a father. So we are seeing this in the Netherlands. Of course, the Netherlands, as Sarah has already said, has a culture of flexibility, remote work, and also part-time work, which
yes, yeah.
we don't really forget here. The mama dog, papa dog is the norm here in the Netherlands. So these are very good examples that we can share, because we have also seen that in terms of productivity, the country does it pretty well. Not working so many hours, but still producing, fair enough growth. So, and I think also Netherlands is actually leading this digital transformation in Europe. The IT tech infrastructure that we have here is a very solid one, and that is a great driver also for more flexibility at work.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we may not be, we have at Untouchables, we have an Untouchables in Sweden, in Stockholm. And I know that my colleague Karin is, I believe, today with us. And I know we are not having 6 hours work days yet in the Netherlands, like in Sweden. But the 32 hours a week is definitely something that is out there and there to stay and very common. So I think that's a great testament to the flexible work hours as well. My last question is going to sound, and it's going to be to the two of you, but it's going to sound like a paradox. Do we need to go back to the office at any level to be able to reach or regain a work-life balance? What is your sentiment on this?
Maybe I start. I think that, of course, setting boundaries has been a big challenge these days for many working professionals. So probably having a bit of a physical space to go to will help us also really set some more healthy boundaries between our work and life, because of course it's all blended and integrated. However, also to make our lives and work sustainable, we need some boundaries. We need some sort of balance. So I think that will probably help returning to a physical space with the lessons that we also learned in the last year and a half, of course, to also be able to understand when it is important also to switch off and to do something different, of course. I don't know if it will be a better balance, but of course it will be a new balance. And I think as long as we adapt and change, and we are also do what is suitable for the times that we have, and we don't forget the lessons that we learned, then yeah, we can grow eventually.
Yes, for sure. And what about you, Sarah? Do you think that the back to better goes via back to the office kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a tricky question for me because I'm super happy working remotely. And being in the office is really not necessary. So
No.
for me at least. So, but I think because I already had this kind of conversation with other people, and as freelancers, because I am also a freelancer aside as being an employee, as freelancer, we already have this kind of boundaries in place because we already know how to manage our time on our own and how to put boundaries and manage our relationship with our work. Because if we don't do it as a freelancer, we are working 24/7. So we really have to manage these boundaries for sure. But I can also understand, because I have a lot of examples around me, that for some people it's easier to be in the office. But I would say that it's not a question of being in the office or working remotely. It's a question of how the company built a culture or develop a culture of accommodating everyone. So how can you work with people who are in the office all the time? How could you work with people who are never in the office for many reasons? And how do you manage people who are sometimes in the office? How do you build your communication, for example? How do you build your time management? Do you use some days to organize meetings and everyone has to be in the office so you can share a lot of things and work maybe on strategy? And how do you manage when other people are not in the office and you want to keep a feeling of being part of something larger than you on a daily basis? So it's more like flexibility. It's not, in my opinion, flexibility, it's not only I will ask all my employees to tell me what they want and we will try to accommodate everyone. Because in this case, you don't have any kind of strategy in terms of communication, in terms of feeling of well-being, and etc., etc. You just have people choosing what they want, but you won't build a real culture in your company. So you really need, in my opinion, a company should first try to understand what it needs in terms of being in the office, working together, communication, etc., etc., and then see how they can accommodate every employee and what they can offer in terms of being in the office, not in the office, remotely, part-time remote, and everything. Because otherwise, it's like everybody can do what they want, but you don't have a real culture within your company.
No. And it's not coherent anymore. And I think to some extent, it also depends on the nature of your business. I know that, for example, for us, the teams of recruiters, they longed to be in the same room again to talk about the various candidates, exchange about the intakes, really share. And it goes back to, your corporate community experience and culture as well. And I think that actually you just answered Albert's question about, do you think an employer should set the boundaries, for example, 2 days in the office and 3 days working from home, or should they be the own choice of the employee? So I think that it has just been answered for you, Albert. I quickly wanted, well, first of all, a huge thank you, big merci to the two of you, grazie mille, for joining us today. And I have one last question that comes from Banco. That's about the home office allowance. He says, within all of the unions in the Netherlands, was it home office allowance defined at some amount as average, or within some brackets that all companies should be guided with? In all honesty, I'm not 100% sure about the answer there. maybe if you can specify, Venko, if you're still there, if you can specify your question, that would be fantastic. Because the home office allowance for me, the one that I know at least was mostly in relation with either your lunch or the day that you spend working from home. So, you know, if you can clarify a little bit your question, that would be fantastic. How do you feel, by the way, about these allowance that have been given? Because it's very specific to the Netherlands as well, to some extent, I feel. What should be the norm, or what do your candidates, the candidates that you are in contact with, kind of expect? I mean, is it seen as a perk to have a home office allowance, or?
I didn't get any question about it from candidates so far.
Okay. What about you, Angela?
Of course, it's a great plus, because sometimes, I mean, people were not equipped also to have their own offices at home. Think about also the Amsterdam apartments, which are pretty tiny, and I mean, like the whole setup there, was not kind of available before. So anything that can support also flexible work practices, homework when needed, I think it is something that should be appreciated, and it's rewarded. It's a great perk. Yeah, absolutely.
And it can be individualized. I mean, we had our general manager, it's not just monetary allowance. We had our general manager, driving to one of our colleagues to bring some chairs, specific chair for a back. And, it's just, I think it can, going back to what you were both saying about being flexible, it also means being able to adapt and recognize the needs of and address the needs, specific needs that may occur in those weird times and in those unexpected times, and that's really to the beauty of having a great company culture, that a company that is able to adapt to those needs and to its employees, basically. But again, thank you to both of you for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you. We will be, and I'm using the 2 minutes still left over to announce that some of you may have seen it, but we are launching an innovation at Untouchables together with Avenir Emploi and Sarah. And we are offering basically 2 weeks of events into all 4 branches at Untouchables, offline and online. These are candidates events, and to be able that we want to allow us to welcome French candidates. So that's a series of events specifically targeting French candidates. Who knows, maybe next, Angela, will do the same thing for Italian candidates or German candidates. I'm hoping it will definitely serve as a pilot for us to do that. And but in the meantime, be well, back to better, enjoy it, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you, everyone.
Sarah. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.